Welcome back to another episode of Equitas Insights, a video series of conversations with industry leaders that provide an in-depth understanding on the relevant topics in the HR and recruitment industry. This month, we had the opportunity to speak with Riham Satti, who is the CEO and founder of Mevitae, on bias in hiring and how she's using her fair hiring solution to solve this problem. Thank you, Riham, for taking time to speak with us today, for joining us for another episode of Equitas Insights. We're happy to have you.
Thanks for inviting me.
So today's episode, we're going to be talking about how bias affects a company's hiring process and what strategies can really be taken to help reduce bias in hiring. So before we get into it, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up starting Mevitae?
Of course. So Mevitae itself was founded in 2014. Our aim is to try and mitigate biases. When I talk about biases, I mean cognitive and algorithmic biases. Before kind of starting the organization, I was in the kind of academic space. I was doing a PhD at the time in neuroscience at Oxford. And I wasn't expecting to start a company at all. It was pure serendipity, let's just say that, and stumbled across the entrepreneurship world whilst trying to get a friend a job into a big tech company. And we thought, hiring processes aren't as efficient as they should be. And, it's a very kind of convoluted process. And we thought, these are computer scientists wanting to find another way to try and grab the attention of recruiters and hiring managers. So we thought probably the best way of doing that is, rather than sending over a CV and cover letter, let's try a different approach to try and grab their attention. And long story short, we built a quick app of his CV and put it up on the Microsoft Windows Store to try and grab their attention. Initially got rejected because what was the point of having a CV on a Windows Store? And we opened it up to the public, and lots of people started just using it, ability to put their name, details, experiences, education. Before we knew it, we had 50,000 downloads of this app, and it was climbing about 100 a day. And we just ended up discovering just how fragmented the HR world was. And then if you start adding things like biases into the mix and human behavior and psychology, it gets very confusing very, very quickly. And pretty much since then, we kind of set out the aim of how do you create a fairer hiring process and fairness in the workplace using technology that myself and that friend I was referring to is now the CTO of the company, Vivek.
Oh, wow. That's quite a journey.
It is. It's an exciting one because one thing I always said that I would never do is run a tech company or be an entrepreneur. And yeah, I guess I tempted fate, but I absolutely love it. And I've learned so much in that experience, and to just building something that can create change and solve challenges and real world problems is an honor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's incredible. Your journey just sounds incredible to me, and that's brilliant. So, what would you say is your understanding of bias in hiring? So, I know it's been changing across so many different years, but what is your understanding of bias in hiring?
Yeah, so from a neuroscience perspective, I'll start from there. A lot of people talk about unconscious biases, and everyone has biases, and there's no way to physically remove biases from the human brain. And it's purely because of the way our brains process information. There's so much stimuli that our brain has to absorb, auditory, visual, olfactory, and process it very, very quickly. And so it kind of puts things into buckets. That's how you kind of create stereotypes. But there's different types of biases that exist in the human brain. And there's about 140 types of biases. Everything from confirmation bias, halo effect bias. There's even the Google effect bias. And in fact, that impacts different stages of the hiring process, right? Especially during the screening process. The first time we see a CV or a cover letter or an application form, that's when a lot of them creep up. The second place is the interview process itself. And so by kind of understanding, and we actually did a study with a university here in the UK where we put employers and recruiters, let's just call them participants for the sake, where we asked them to kind of look at different CVs, and we gave them 10 seconds to stare at each one. And we tracked their eye movement when they looked at these CVs. Why not, right? And we discovered that they'd spend some time on someone's name, which we know is not an indicator of talent last time I checked, job title, which varies from company to company, a location as well, university name has a big impact, and also hobbies and interests. And if the hobbies and interests are not related to the role, that can also skew things. And so we definitely know that it creeps in during those kind of initial interactions, that first time an applicant applies to a role. And so biases definitely not just impact HR, but impact every sector. But it's because of just our human brain and our behavior. It's a neurological thing. And strategies like unconscious bias training, what many organizations do at the moment, are great ways of creating awareness and building that discussion point. We need to look at other ways to try to tackle this problem.
Yeah, of course. And that's an interesting part you mentioned about how even university names can have a really big impact. You know, I know a lot of friends in the past have like, you know, come from different academic backgrounds. And, you know, a lot of them are quite worried about how their university name on their CV is going to be impacted on them getting the right jobs. It doesn't even matter the skills they have. It's just, you know, they will see a name and it's just like it stands out to them. So it's a really interesting aspect of like bias, that so many different types of bias can creep in just by looking at a CV. And as you're right, like it tackles all different parts of the hiring process. You know, I was thinking mostly is it just related to the interview side of things, but no, it's comes from the beginning right through to the end.
You know? Yeah, absolutely. Even the way job descriptions are written or phrased has an impact. You know, how we screen applicants, the technology we use when they're just even using keyword matching to filter candidates out can have an impact. Looking at university name could, you know, have an impact. Yeah. Even company name as well. You know, if someone has a preference for a certain organization that a candidate has worked at, could sway things as well. And so there's always going to be an impact, and we can never ever, you know, completely eliminate all of it. But if we can try and mitigate some of that, just to create a fairer process, because it's very hard to standardize. In fact, I don't think you can really standardize talent. It comes in so many different shapes and sizes. So if we can just give people that opportunity to kind of find who they are and discover it, and give them that equal chance to get to later stages of the hiring process, we don't know what we could discover. It could be absolutely beautiful, and they could fit the company's culture, their mindset, and they could be great hires. They just need that chance.
Yeah, exactly. Give individuals a chance to really prove themselves in a new setting. So yeah, 100% agree with that. And then so I think there has been more of an increase in the awareness of bias in hiring, and like I know a lot of companies are still trying to tackle this, and it's not an easy process for some, but I think like a lot of them are aware of this and are still trying to like figure out the best strategy for them. So how would you say that you are trying to currently like solve the problem of bias in particular?
Absolutely. So our focus is on the kind of talent acquisition process. That's the area that we kind of mostly focus on, and we offer different solutions that focus at different stages of the hiring process. The most popular one that most clients and most people know us for is our blind recruiting feature, which plugs into existing HR systems. So Mevitae is pretty much invisible. You can't really see. We're not a platform or anything like that. We integrate into what we call application tracking systems, or ATSs. Okay. Greenhouse, Taleo, Jazz HR, Smart Recruiters are all ATSs. And we deliver most of our products through that. And the blind recruiting solution I was referring to is the ability to redact personal identifiable information directly from resumes, cover letters, application forms, whatever the format is, while still retaining the format of the documents. And we can redact about 20 parameters from these documentations, university name being one of them, name or pronouns, hobbies and interests, dates, marital status, date of birth, nationality, all of those things. But it's up to the organization to pick and choose what they want it to redact. It's about 95% accuracy in being able to pull that information out, redact it, and retain the format of that documentation. And it does it pretty quickly. A lot of organizations that are currently doing blind recruiting do it manually. It takes a couple of minutes to do each CV or each cover letter, which you could do it the first couple of times, but then it gets very laborious and gets very painful very, very quickly. So we do it, the system does about 606 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And so it's pretty quick. And most of our clients are in the UK and the US. So kind of average client size, just above 20,000 employee size for us. And well, we have everything from 35 employees to 90,000. But our blind recruiting solution has been shown to increase gender and ethnicity diversity for candidates. And also we've seen that companies that mention that they're using blind recruiting and thus Mevitae have seen more diverse candidates apply to roles, and which actually helps when you're trying to widen the talent pool as much as possible, because then you've got more selection, you can screen talent potentially as well. So that's kind of one of many solutions we have, including diversity and inclusion metrics and analysis, which is a whole other world of its own.
So what are the key takeaways from this episode? Well, there are about 140 biases out there, and these can have an impact on the hiring process, especially during the screening and interview stages. Also, blind recruiting helps to widen the talent pool. Mevitae's blind recruiting solution has been shown to increase gender and ethnicity diversity. The more companies that have invested in blind recruiting have seen more diverse candidates apply for roles. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode in the series.